when I spoke to the US guys in our office and said, how do we differ? They said, you guys are exactly the same, just a bit different. And I think that applies exactly the same to the UK marketplace. For instance, we have exactly the same levels of people in the UK who are able to access the internet. Broadband over the last 2 years has doubled in size, and as such, we've reached a very similar tipping point to the US. The internet is now bigger than radio, and it's twice as big as press and magazines, and a massive 14% of advertising spend is online. But I don't think it's just the impact of the media that's the same. It's also the behavior. 75% of us go online just for fun. And when we're online, 9 out of the 10 top sites that we use are US-based sites, with the exception of the BBC. Our biggest and most favorite site, as in the US, is Google, but Google has a massive 83% penetration in the UK marketplace. But I really wanted to get into this and understand whether we truly were doing the same things in the UK as in the US. So I took a representative set of keywords and started looking at Google Trends to understand if we were searching for exactly the same things in the same way. So love, health, sex, and fast food. And it turned out we were looking at these exactly the same way in the UK as we are in the US. But I think when I looked at this, it wasn't just the fact that we were doing similar things. The main point of difference was actually the way that we talked. It's not the plummy English accent thing, or even the confusion between words like lift and elevator and pavement and sidewalk and cakes and buns. It's more to do with the tone of voice that we use when we sell things. I think there's a real aversion to selling and being sold to in the UK. And that is really why I think in the UK it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Let me give you an example. In terms of the coffee market, a generic approach to selling coffee is often to take a group of attractive people, put them in a social situation, introduce the product, and use that as the basis for selling. I think in the UK, the aversion to selling, almost the anti-sales strategy, means that you get this sort of creative approach. And now, if we can run the Flavia banner ad, you can see what I mean. Ooh. That would be wrong. And I think where this comes from is the British culture has a real difficulty in people imposing themselves upon other people, in terms of if you're walking down the street and you were to bump into an English person deliberately, that English person would apologize to you. And I think that flows through into it flows through into our creative industry, which has come up with increasingly elaborate ways to sell things without selling things. And unfortunately, we've had the luxury of a media market where for the first 20 years there was just a single commercial network, and then there was 2 for the next 20 years. And it's really in the last 15 years that there has been any sort of fragmentation and need to work hard. But I thought I'd now look at a case when, in terms of financial services, where it's not so easy to be indirect. In terms of financial services, it's obviously all product, it's all rational, and it's incredibly difficult to create emotion, create desire. And the thing about the British tone of voice is I think we don't take ourselves too seriously, and that therefore allows you to, I think, educate and entertain together at the same time, and in that way get across the key sales message. And if we could show the standard life example of how we sold mortgages now, please.
You may be worth more than you thought. Take Steve here. Okay, so you could replace his wardrobe in a charity shop for 30 quid. But he's careful with his cash, his salary's gone up, and he hasn't maxed out his credit cards. Plus, his house may not look like much, but it's gone up in value by about 20% since he moved in. Nice work, Steve. You're smarter than you look. Now, if Steve goes to his lender and gets his credit reassessed, he may discover he can borrow more and use those additional funds to improve his home, get a second property, upgrade his car, or, I don't know, get some decent clothes. Sorry.
That's what the apology thing again. And there was one other observation I wanted to make about the UK market. There has been an enormous explosion in a focus on corporate social responsibility in the UK. Everything from childhood obesity to saving the rainforest is kind of grouped together into a real focus on companies demonstrating social responsibility in the UK. And corporate social responsibility obviously falls into two bits. You have corporate social responsibility where businesses demonstrate social responsibility. And 83% of the UK population say that is either important or very important. And the other side of it is cause-related marketing, where you link, as a promotional tactic, a cause to your product, and by doing that, obviously, look to increase sales. And 71% of the UK population said over the last 12 months that they have bought a product at point of sale because of those causes. Now, I think the next example here shows how all these things come together in terms of the British tone of voice, the social responsibility, and in this instance, it's going to be Oxfam, which is a charity focused on ending poverty, and the whole idea about creating a compelling and novel promotion that it uses the internet and e-commerce. And in this instance, what we did was we've created a new gift-giving segment where you can give gifts to the third world through e-commerce. And now we can show you the ad of how we promoted that and communicated that. Please, if we could show the Oxfam advert. British tone of voice again for you again. So, in summary, I think we're about as big as Idaho as a country, and we have the population of California and Texas combined. I think the key tone of voice is vital in order to achieve success and work properly in the UK market. And thank you very much.